We all have mental health. It's just as important as physical health, and it's not only about mental illness or mental disorders. It's best to think of mental health as being on a continuum rather than someone being mentally ill or mentally well. We're all on a continuum and we move up and down according to factors like genetic makeup, upbringing, life circumstances, and the stresses we're under. Examples of positive mental health are being resilient and able to cope, feeling hopeful, being confident and feeling good about yourself, managing and expressing your emotions, and building and maintaining good relationships. We all experience periods where we feel stressed, worried, anxious, sad, afraid, or angry. These are all normal emotions. However, when these emotions become severe enough and interfere with the person's ability to function daily, and the feelings become persistent over time, then it can develop into a mental health problem. When left untreated, mental disorders can be chronic, long-lasting, and can even be associated with increased disability. They significantly have an impact on daily functioning. They can even interfere with family, social, and work responsibilities. Fortunately, there are effective treatments that aim to help individuals understand and cope with symptoms of mental illness. However, very few people with mental disorders access existing treatment services. This may be due to barriers such as the stigma attached to seeking help, lack of understanding of mental health problems, the uncertainty of how to get help, or the fear of disclosing mental health problems. Research shows that stigma remains one of the biggest factors preventing people from seeking help early for their mental health problems and getting the appropriate support that they need. It is very important to acknowledge that we all have mental health and have a personal responsibility to learn how we can improve and maintain our well-being in order to live meaningful and satisfying lives.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. What is up, New Life? What is happening, New Life? Friends of New Life, so glad to connect with you. I am Pastor D for those of you that may be on for the first time. And I want to say welcome as we are doing something special for the month of May. The month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so it is something that is very dear. This topic is very dear to my heart. And, for a long time, I've dealt with mental health and the importance of it. And so we just highlight it in the month of May. And so, but understand this, that I believe that for this ministry is not going to be a once a month thing, but it's going to be something that we address often. I believe that mental health, emotional health, mental well-being, emotional well-being is on the heart of God as well. I love that video that we just saw. So great when it talks about mental health. Really, we all have a mental health status. We all have a mental health thermometer. We all have a mental health, we have a scale. Listen, let's be real. We all have a scale. And so, from 1 to 10, 10 being greatest, you got to kind of see where you are. And so, one of the things that I really like to focus on this time of the year is making sure that we remove the stigmas of, dealing with mental health and making it seem like it's just this category all by itself and Christians are not supposed to deal with it, right? Like you're either supposed to be like super spiritual, or if you have a mental health issue, you're weak spiritually and all that kind of stuff. And so listen, like I've said, for those of you that may be joining for the first time and hear me for the first time, This is the thing. If somebody were to have an ache in their arm or have an ache in their body, we wouldn't tell them, "Hey, you're weak. What are you doing?" We would say, "Hey, listen, let's pray. Let's take authority over this issue." At the same time, after we pray, I want you to go and I want you to get checked. I want you to see what's going on. And if the doctor said, "Hey, this is the diagnosis, and you need these treatments," or "Hey, maybe you need this surgery," we wouldn't say, "Hey, you weak. You weak because you have an issue. You weak because you have a surgery." Absolutely not. We say, "Hey, listen, we're going to be praying. We're going to be believing God, and go ahead and God, like my bishop said, God can heal by miracle or by medicine. Man, go ahead and get that surgery," right? And so it's the same thing with mental health. We've got to deal with it. The fact that suicides are what they are, the fact that people deal with it, whether you're a Christian or not, whether you are, no matter what ethnicity, no matter what gender, no matter where you are financially, no matter where you are socially, economically, no matter where you are, people deal with mental health. And so understand this. So many people, are struggling. They're folks go to work, folks come to church, smiling, looking like they have it all together, and then they go home, cry themselves to sleep, or drink themselves, under the table, trying to deal with the mental and emotional health, doing destructive things, dealing with drugs, dealing with a person, trying to ease the pain. And so we got to make sure that we talk about mental and emotional health. And I don't know about you, but I want my mind to be right. I want my emotions to be right. Yes, even your pastor has to monitor, even your pastor has to make sure that he fights and deals with his mental and emotional health. I cannot, listen, leading people, I got to make sure I'm on point. And so I cannot afford to just allow my mental and emotional health to just go under the table. Listen, I know 400 scriptures. Okay, that's cool, but you know 400 scriptures, but you don't even have peace of mind. And so we got to make sure that we have that's on point. I want to make sure my mental and emotional health is on point. And so that's why we have these couch times. That's why we talk about it. Last Wednesday was absolutely dynamic. We had Dr. Sarah Hill join us last Wednesday, and man, we really got into some things. And tonight is going to be no different, man. This is the second out of 3 couch times. The next one won't be until I think the very last Wednesday of the month, I believe. And then we have some special things going on. The last Sunday of the month is going to be committed to mental and emotional health. We have some special things planned for the last Sunday of the month. I'm excited about that. So listen, let's go ahead and kind of get started. Let's talk about some things. I'm excited about what we're talking about tonight. I believe there's going to be a lot of healing tonight. I believe there's going to be some answers and some strategy and some techniques that will be released tonight. I believe if you're hungry and you're leaning in and you're saying, "Pastor, I need some answers. I need some help," I believe that God is going to meet you exactly where you are, because there has to be, listen to this. You better hear this. You better hear this. There has to be peace and success in your home. Let me say it again. There has to be peace and success in your home. There's too much trauma. There's too much toxicity, too many issues in folks' homes. There has to be peace. There has to be peace. There has to be success in your homes. And so I believe that you're going to get some answers tonight so we can deal with that and bring some peace, bring some success in your home. So listen, I was kind of just looking up some things, just kind of thinking about some things. And so I was looking up this category, slang by decade. Okay, slang. So we all have some words that maybe aren't quite in the Webster's dictionary. We call it slang. And so I was looking up slang by decades, right? And so let me go over the decades. Start with 1920. So 1920, the terms that were introduced were 23 skidoo. I never quite heard that, but whatever. 23 and the cast pajamas. You watch the old movie, you heard that. Or the real McCoy. That was a 1920 slang term. Or the bee's knees. Those were 1920 slang terms. And when you get to 1930, a couple of the slang terms was "I'll be a monkey's uncle" and "gig." We talk about gig economy and gig jobs now, but gig actually was determined in 1930s, probably had to do with the Great Depression. And then in 1940s, some of the slang terms were keeping up with the Joneses. That's one of the slang terms in the 40s. Or cool was actually introduced in 1940. And here's another one, sitting in the hot seat. It's it's amazing we say these terms now, but it was originated in 1940. And then in 1950, here goes some of the slang terms. Here goes some slang terms. Big brother is watching you. In the 1950s. Hipster was another word. And here goes one we've heard before, daddy-o. Daddy-o was a slang term that was created in 1950. 1960, here goes some of the slang words. Groovy. Groovy, man. That was created in 1960. Far out. That's a 60s term. And bread. We talk about money. You got some bread, man. It was referring to money. That's 1960s. 1970s, here's some of the terms. Catch you on the flip side. Right? Can you dig it? That was a 1970 term. Dig it. Get down was a 1970. Boogie was a 1970s term. And even this term right here, which I thought was funny, workaholic. That was actually that term became popular in 1970, in the 70s, and then in the 80s, 1980s. Bodacious. That was the term that was created. Chilling. That was 1980s. Fly. You all remember the Fly Girls? Y'all remember? Some of y'all don't know nothing about the Fly Girls. The fly was a term. Here goes what, gag me with a spoon. I remember those types of terms. And gnarly. That all came up in the 80s. 1990s, right? This is kind of my wheelhouse right here. Some of our wheelhouse right here. Here's some of the words. Diss. Right, man, you got this, right? Get jiggy was 1990. Homeboy actually became a popular term in 1990. My bad. That's a 1990 term. Fat, PHAT was in the 1990s. What's up? That's a 1990s term. And word. That's a 1990 term. And the 2000s, here's a few of them. Peeps, my peeps. Here's another one, sweet. And this one right here, BFF. How popular is BFF? And then in the 2010s, chillax became a word. Our bae, right? Our shook, lit became a word, and flick became a word, became a term, a slang term in the 2010s. And then in the 2020s, just a few facts. That's a term. Fire is a term. And GOAT became a term in the 20s. And I'm sure there are a lot of terms that we're leaving out in that we can go as far as these slang terms. So, how we talk, how we dress, all of that stuff has changed throughout the decades. But there's something else that has evolved decade by decade. And that's this right here. As we're talking tonight about young minds, as we're talking about the mental and emotional health of children and teens, one of the things that has changed over the decades is how our children and teens are influenced. How our children and teens are influenced. So in the 50s, the 60s, the main influences were the family, the community. Church was the main influence. There were a lot of traditional values that were significant. Okay, in the 1950s, 1960s, television began to play a role, but a lot of the influence was directly in the home or a place like church. And then by the 70s, television became prominent, along with peers and an emerging youth culture, music, fashion. Think about the 70s, man. The whole disco, all that kind of stuff. The music and the fashion and the social movements that were taking place in the 70s began to impact and influence children and teens and what we saw in society. And in the 80s, television continued to dominate. Think about the 80s, MTV, BET, right? All those shows we would watch, the Cosby Show, all those different types of shows we would watch in the 80s. It became just such a big thing. Video games began to start very early. And then by the 90s, the internet became more accessible, and that began to lead to an increase in access to culture and diversity and different ideas and thoughts and concepts. Before that, you got a lot of stuff from the newspaper. All of a sudden, the internet is here, and you can pick up information, pick up thoughts, pick up movements. The pop culture began to be really popular and begin to influence how kids were learning and how they were processing movies. Think about how big movies were in the 80s and the 90s, these big blockbuster films that were coming out. Just the whole celebrity just became so big all the different types of magazines and all that kind of stuff in the 90s. And then by the 2000s, social media began to emerge. 2000s. And it really began to transform not only how children and teens were influenced, but how they begin to interact with each other. And then you talk about celebrities, and then the whole concept of influencers begin to really pop on the stage, right? And technology and smartphones begin to deal, and video games and game consoles begin to really develop and progress. And then in the 2010s, social media, man, here goes. Smartphones, oh my goodness, begin to shape relationships and friendships, and listen, begin to shape self-esteem. We begin to deal with a lot of cyberbullying and all that kind of stuff in the 20s, all those different types of things in the 2010s. YouTube became so big, and all these online communities and all the streaming became so big. And then the 2020s, just the digital landscape, and AI, it's just out there. Social media is so big, so massive. Think about during the pandemic, in the role that social media played, how it influenced things and movement. You had the pandemic, you had the George Floyd situation, you had, the election. You had so many things going on. So by the 2020s, there's so many things that were going on. All of this stuff, listen, you got to hear this. All of that stuff has been molding and guiding children and teens. It has been molding and guiding children and teens. And and when you see all of these things and these trends and the increases over the decades, you know what it means? It just equals a lot of voices in the ears of our children, a lot of voices in the ears of our teenagers. Listen, I talk about it different times with different people. I was just at an event talking to a father around my age, and we were talking about how our sons were competing in this football thing, and it's just a different, man. Young people now, children and teens now, they are faced with stuff that my generation never had to deal with. Never had to deal with. If you had an embarrassing moment, it kind of happened in that moment, maybe in that classroom, and people talked about it. Man, cats now are recording this stuff, World Star, putting it all over the place, catching moments on TikTok. There's so many, the pressure to become this, the pressure to be that. People posting stuff on Instagram and Facebook, make it look like they're living their best life, even though their life is trash. They're making it look like they're just the greatest. And then a teenager, a kid sees that, and all of a sudden they want to emulate that. They want to be that. They're seeing these celebrities and all that kind of stuff on social media. They got so much pressure. So there are so many voices in the ears of our children and in the ears of our kids. So this is the question that I want to pose tonight, and this is what I want to deal with. This becomes the question: what role do the parents play? What role do the grandparents play? What role does the family play? What role does the home play? This is what we got to deal with tonight. What role does a parent play? What role does a parent play when it comes to voices, when it comes to influence, when it comes to all the stuff that's going on in the 21st century? Well, I want to pull up a scripture, very familiar scripture, Proverbs chapter 22, verse number 6. This is not necessarily a church service, but everything we do is based on the word of God. Look what it says on the screen. It says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he shall not depart from that training. And listen, it's not gender specific. It could be a male, female. But this is the thing I want you to understand. There's a word, as I was preparing for this and praying about this, there's a word that popped out that I hadn't paid much attention to before. Put that scripture up one more time. I want people to see it. I wanted to pop out for them. Proverbs chapter 22, verse number 6, it says, train up a child in the way he should go. Somebody put should in the comment section. Train up a child in the way he should go. And when he is old, he shall not depart from it. Put the word should in the comment section. Train up a child in the way he should go. In other words, listen. There's a way that a child should go. But that's also based on the way they should be trained. It says, train up the child in the way they should go. So there's a way that they should go, but there's also a way that they should be trained. And what you and I have to understand is that whether you're training in a positive manner or a negative manner, you are still training. This tells me that kids cannot on their own direct themselves, guide themselves. So they need some training. So the question becomes, who's training your child? Who's training your teenager? I like what the New Living Translation, how it says it. It says, direct your children onto the right path. And when they are older, they will not leave it. You see what it said? It said, direct your children onto the right path. You are going to direct your children on the right path or on the wrong path. Either way, you are going to direct your children. Oh my goodness. Come on now. Can we talk tonight? Can we deal with it tonight? Tonight we're dealing with the impact that parents have, that grandparents have, that uncles and aunts have, the impact that parents have on their children's mental and emotional health, on their teenagers' mental and emotional health. If you think that you're not impacting your teenager, if you think that you're not impacting your child, you are misunderstood. You got to understand that what you're saying to your child is affecting their mental and emotional health. What you are showing your child is affecting their mental and their emotional health. One thing that you got to understand is they see you before they hear you. They're watching what you do. They're watching who you date. They're watching how you allow people to treat you. Come on, somebody. They're watching what you do in your spare time. They're learning from, they're being guided by what you're saying, what you're showing them. Listen, how you treat them, how you treat your children really impacts their mental and emotional health. Listen, what you allow them to access, what you parent, what you grandparent, what you uncle, what you aunt, what you foster parent, what you allow them to access is guiding them, is pointing them in a specific direction. You say, man, there's all this crazy stuff on social media. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So whatever we allow them to access, that's on us as a parent. Can we just get real tonight? Come on. They're in your house, under your roof. You know what's so sad is there's times when we've had these mass shootings happen that's been carried out by a young person. And after the mass shooting and all this carnage and all these dead bodies, the police, FBI, they now go into the home, they go into the room of that child or that teenager, and they start finding ammunition. They start finding all this hate stuff. They start finding all of these plans to do this destructive stuff, and to come to find out the parent just never went into the home. That's my kids. That's my kid. The parent that went to the room. Well, that's my kid's room. I want to give them the privacy. Is your kid paying rent? So in my house, I got several rooms in this house, and they all belong to me. You know what I'm saying? All the rooms in this house belong to me. I may let my kids stay in the room, but all the rooms belong to me. So understand that whatever is going on in that room, you are allowing your kid to access all that. If they got a cell phone that you pay for, come on now, come on. So what we allow them to access, listen to this, you better hear this. How we talk to our kids and our teenagers is affecting their mental and emotional health. Come on now. Let me say this one scripture that I didn't have on my notes, and that's this. Hebrews chapter 11. Romans 10, 17 says, no, I'm saying the wrong thing. My goodness. What scripture am I looking for? Some of y'all theologians know. Faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. That is Romans, right? That's Romans. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God, right? So whatever you hear is what you believe. Romans 10:17. Thank you so much. Whatever you hear is what you believe. So guess what? If a child hears over and over and over and over again, you're stupid, you're a mistake, you're going to be just like your daddy, you're going to be no good. If they hear that over and over and over and over and over again, guess what? They begin to believe that. And it becomes even a self-fulfilling prophecy. So whatever you're saying is affecting your kids' mental and emotional health. And so the scripture that I want to look at is Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. It says, death and life is in the power of the tongue. And I'm going to bring some guests on in a minute. I'm not just going to be sitting there talking. It says in Proverbs 18, 21, it says, death and life are where? in the power of the tongue. Let me say that again. Proverbs 18, verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. You see that? And they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Death and life are in the power of your kids are eating the fruit that's coming out your mouth, man. You can so let me see. Listen, this is what it says in the Passion Translation. It says it this way: your words are so powerful that they can kill or give life. Oh my goodness, did you hear that? Sometimes when I hear parents, listen, let me be honest with you. Sometimes when I hear parents talking to their kids, sometimes when I hear parents talking to their kids, I cringe on the inside because I see a parent talking to their kid like that's their sister or that's their little sister, that's their little brother, not a parent talking to a child, but I see almost like a big sister talking to a little sister, a big brother talking to a little brother. In other words, the cruelty that comes out of the mouths of some parents towards their kids. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. You're going to kill your kids' self-esteem, or you're going to give life to your kids' self-esteem. You're going to kill your kids' mental health, or you're going to give life to your kids' mental health based on what comes out of your mouth. You are molding and making and guiding those children based on what you say. It is that serious. So now I'm going to bring on some content experts so that I'm not just talking by myself. I'm going to bring on some boots on the ground folks that are in the mix, that are with children every single day. And they're going to tell us, they're going to talk to us. We're going to talk about some issues. We're going to talk about some strategies. I'm telling you, y'all get ready, lean in, get ready for some answers, get ready for some very practical discussions. I'm excited about this. Let's go ahead and bring my guests on. These are boots on the ground. Come on now, let's bring our guests on. We got Elder Selena Simpson. We got Raquel Prater. These are, listen, they're not just members of New Life, but they are teachers by profession. You better hear this now. Listen. Whatever's going on in that home, they pay for it at their job. Just like a fireman responds to a fire, these teachers are responding to the fires that were started at home and then come to the school. Oh my goodness, can we welcome our guests? These are boots on the ground right here. Elder Selena, Miss Raquel, as the kids call her. Welcome to Couch Time. I'm so humble, so grateful that you all would join me here as we talk about these young minds, the mental and emotional health of the children and the teenagers. Let me ask you, all the stuff that I said, am I missing it? Am I just blowing smoke, or is there any truth to what I'm saying?
All good. Keep it 100. All facts.
Facts, right? So listen. So let me first get the length of time. So Elder Selena, you've been teaching how long?
22 years.
22 years. 22 years. Every parent of every child that you taught owes you about a few $1 million. You ought to be a multi-billionaire. All these baby kids you've been dealing with for 22 years. And Raquel, how long have you been teaching?
This is my 3rd year teaching, but I've been working with kids for about 8 or 9 years now.
Yes. And you deal with the early childhood development.
Yes, the young ones.
Right. Which has become, although it's always existed when you talk about preschool and those different types of things, all those always existed. Probably over the last several years, maybe decade or so, it's become more prominent, the importance of early childhood development. And so listen, ladies, I'm so excited to have you on here. So let me say this, everybody that's watching, that's listening, listen, if you know a parent, listen, come on. Some of y'all know there's some parents, you know they need to be on this right now. You ain't even got to say it, just tag them. Just tag them. And when you tag them, it's gonna look like the face of Pastor Keon Henderson. It's gonna be one of those. Hey, in Jesus' name, get on this. I love Pastor Keon Henderson, man. I'm glad he did what he did. So when you tag him, that's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be like, hey, you need to get on this right now. Listen, if you have a question, go ahead, put it in the comment section, and we'll get a chance to kind of deal with that. So let me ask some questions. I'm looking at some questions right here. Let's get into this. Children and adults, for the most part, express their they express their behavior. They maybe act out a little different, right? Because when grown folks act out like a kid, we got a place called prison that they end up going to, right? So, it is a human thing, but for the most adults know how, unless they have some sort of processing disability. Most adults know how to, not go and punch out, their coworker or their supervisor and that type of thing. So let's just kind of talk about, why do kids act out? Why do kids sometimes behave the way that they behave when it comes to negativity? It's a negative behavior, right? So let's kind of get into that. Let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start. Some of the reasons that children can behave the way that they do or act out the way that they do, they're very young and they are experiencing lots of different emotions for the first time. So they have like no experience to fall back on when they are experiencing them. And each behavior that they have, there's a reason behind it. There's in like the behavior analysis world, there are 4 functions identified for behavior. So each behavior either has one or multiple of these functions. One can be attention seeking. So they're doing something for attention, whether it be good attention or negative attention. Good attention being, I helped my friend and the teacher says, "Oh, good job. That was very kind of you. You helped that friend do this." And then they feel that, that praise. So that's like a social or a positive social attention that they're receiving. Whereas a lot of time we see the negative, which is even if my mom or the teacher is going to yell out at me, I'm getting some kind of attention. That's what I want right now. So it doesn't matter that it's negative. Another one can be sensory or automatic, which is something, it's like self-stimulating. So they don't need another person to reinforce the behavior. So you'll see this a lot in children that may have disabilities, like a child who has autism. Sometimes there's certain things that they do, like hand flapping, and that's like a sensory thing. Something else that seems like kind of normal is like nail biting when you have anxiety, but that kind of maybe will help soothe you. And then there's also escape or avoidance, which is always fun as a teacher to have the child that wants to run when you say, "Okay, we're done with outside time to line up." And you got the one kid who wants to like and you got to go get that child. But it could also be in the form of when they're older, like ripping up homework. They don't want to do it. They feel frustrated. They don't understand it. But instead of saying that, they do something like ripping their homework. Or at home, "I don't want to eat these vegetables. Flip the plate over." So like that. And then I actually have a chart here. Is it okay if I show it just for?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Go ahead.
All right. And then the last one is tangible down at the bottom. And that's just trying to get like objects. So maybe you hit somebody, like a child hit somebody to get a toy, or even hit somebody for attention. So instead of using words, if they're old enough to do that, they hit to get attention. They hit to get the person to look at them, or pushing. Just things like that are some ways that they can show or get the tangible. So I don't want to keep this up super long, but it has different times that it can happen. And this also has ways that you can respond, which I can share later with people if they want to see. But
yeah, and let's definitely, we can get that posted on our social media. That was such a great chart. So what you're saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes when we see a kid misbehave, we just automatically label them like, "That's a bad kid." right? And then we're not trying to understand. So as an adult, I may say something like, "Man, I'm frustrated, or I'm tired," but a child may express it through a negative behavior,
Mm-hmm.
right? I almost think of it like, I don't know, almost like a door that you go through, right? You're trying to get something out of the room, so you send it through a door, through a window, and so it seems like what we're seeing outwardly is just like an inwardly thing, frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
wanting some attention, needing something, all that kind of trying to get some comfort. You
Mm-hmm.
said the nail biting, or sometimes maybe a kid tapping on the desk or something, right? It's just some sort of way. See, that's so good to know, because if we're not seeking to understand why a child is doing what they're doing, they're just going to perpetuate. They're going to continue to do that behavior. If the need doesn't get met, they're going to keep doing it. It's just like anytime I've said that somebody goes into a place and shoots a place up, right? We never justify that, but that person was just attempting to resolve something. It's like that frustration, that anger, that hurt, that bitterness, that hate needed to like leave their body some sort of way. And it happened to be through that, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just let me ask. I mean, and again, you can send that out. And Elder Selena, anytime you jump in, you can send that out. But maybe pick one of them, a behavior, okay, that you experienced, and you knew it was this category. Like you knew the child long enough, right? So it wasn't day one. It was maybe the 100th day of school. You understand that kid. You know how they operate. So give an example of one of those behaviors that they display, and like how you dealt with it. Because I guarantee you, as parents that are watching right now, they're like, what you just said is my kid.
Okay. One I can give that I know is very common with children. A lot of parents probably experience is tantrums. So you can handle them differently based on the age of the child, but usually that tantrums kind of start around 2, which I know people think is like early, but it starts that young, and you want to make sure that you identify it as that instead of like making excuses for your child in the moment. Like you said, you observe and you see it starting to become a pattern. Say your child is like 2 and they're doing the tantrum. A lot of the time, I know we have a tendency like, oh, they're little, want to pick them up, and oh, it's okay. But if you identify that it's actually a tantrum, your child's not sick or anything, what you want to do is take attention away, because that is attention seeking at its loudest.
Mm.
These tantrums. So you don't just ignore them right away. You see that it is, maybe you were trying to help them and it just turned to a tantrum. They're screaming, kicking, whatever on the floor. Just very calmly, I'm not going to talk to you while you're doing this. I'm going to be over there, and when you're ready, you can come see me. And you leave them.
Literally walk away from them on the floor, kicking and screaming.
Yes. If you're in a store, obviously not take the child home. Like that's how you would do it in a public place. You take them out of that atmosphere, because you know what? Now we have to leave. When you do this, we leave. We don't get to stay. But if you're at home and this is doing this, or you're in a safe place, you literally, yes, would walk away. Obviously, you're going to still you can see them. They don't know that you can see them, but you can see them. You know that they're safe, but you ignore it. And it goes on. I've done this before with a child, or several times, gone on for like 20 minutes. But here and there, I might go over, are you ready? And then start over. Okay. All right. Let me know when you're ready. But most of the time, a child will come to you before you go to the child. You go out. You don't have to sit there doing nothing. You can be doing other things, but waiting them out to show that that's not how you get my attention. And if you have to do it consistently, that's the thing. You have to reinforce. So every time it happens, you have to have the same kind of response, and it will shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. The time will shrink, will go down.
Wow.
Tantrums, with the length of these tantrums, until they are able to communicate a little better. And that is especially with older children who have the language and know better, take that attention away.
Yeah.
They can
You said one thing that I really liked what you said, when they're, especially when they're younger, 2 years old, right? You said that parents making excuses, right? Let me say this as pastor of New Life Christian Fellowship, okay? It is not cute when a kid is misbehaving. It is not cute when a kid is throwing a tantrum. That is not cute. Listen, I don't like it when I'm in Walmart and some kid is, especially if it's like, and especially if it's a young or older kid. When I see, man, listen, when I see some of these kids that are 8 or 9 and they're literally going, we all say, we've all seen it. That ain't cute. That ain't cute at all. So this tantrum, throwing a fit, whatever the case may be, that is not cute. It's not okay. And I love what you said. You said that when you begin to get consistent, it shrinks, right? Right. The thing is, if you don't ever address it, it doesn't. It stays there. And so the 2-year-old all of a sudden is 12 years old. The tantrum looks different, but it's still a tantrum. And the 12-year-old is now 22 years old. The tantrum looks different, but it's still a tantrum. It's still a tantrum. It's still a tantrum. So that was so I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you sharing that. Listen, for time's sake, let me go on to some of these other questions. Okay. Let me say this. Let me ask this question. So if a parent is ignoring behavior, or the kid throws a tantrum, and to get the kid to stop, the parent gives the kid a treat, candy, a drink, whatever the case may be, or a parent that never likes to say no to their kid, basically just kind of, whatever. What are y'all's thoughts about that? Because again, y'all the one that have to deal with it at school, because you can't deal with it like the parent.
Right. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster, because I see it. I say, Raquel works with the little ones. I have the older kids. They're just in bigger bodies. They have the same big emotions, and giving in just lets them. It kind of gives them permission to do it elsewhere. So if they're getting away with it at the home with their parents, then they come to me and they're like, oh, there's a payoff. So when I do this XYZ, I'm going to get the lollipop. I'm going to get the whatever to make me be quiet. Or, was it Chewy Stops the Chatter when they were giving out those granola bars in those commercials? You just give them something to fill their mouth. So we don't want to give into those negative emotions. And when it comes to me in the classroom, I always say, I ask them or tell them, wherever you do that, wherever you're doing that, you're not there. Wherever you do that behavior, you're not there. I don't put the parents on blast. Like, you can do it with your mom, but you're not gonna do that with me.
Like I told you, I do. When I was a school administrator, I used to say, "I ain't your mama." So, maybe I should have had this discussion. I used to tell, "I ain't your mama."
Yes, wherever that is working for you, you're not there. So I have them sit down and explain to them that is not acceptable. To be a productive member of society, I give the whole spiel. This is what we do moving forward, because they need to learn empathy, and they can't just do whatever, whenever, because I have 20-something kids in the classroom, and I'm not going to cater to this nonsense right here. So giving in is not the way to go, because they just think that they can get away with it elsewhere.
That is so good. Listen, parents and grandparents, please listen to what's going on. You got to hear that. Because, because you're not, let me say that, because you're not standing up to your child, and you allow your child to punk you, or let me even say, let me be a little bit more kind. Let me be a little more kind. All right. You're frustrated and you don't quite know what to do. Let me say, how about I say that? You're frustrated, you don't know what to do, right? Let's say that. You understand that it's so detrimental because what happens when they go to school, it's like a little society. And so, when they go to that school, it's like being in a neighborhood, in a community, in a society. And again, when I was a school administrator, I worked with the older ones. So I did work for kindergarten through 6th grade, but then I worked 7th to 12th grade. Listen to me, I saw 17, 18-year-olds have tantrums. And you talk about elder salinity, a bigger body, and it's dangerous. I remember I had 2 young men that were physically just amazing, gifted, all that kind of stuff, but had no self-control. When they got angry, they spazzed out. One day they happened to find each other and just had this issue. I worked in this school where we could lock the doors from both sides. There was a main office and a back office. We had to lock one in one office with staff and had to lock another one in the office with staff. I was in one office and the other staff. Lock the doors because they were trying to get to each other. They knew the other ones on the other side of the wall and they were banging on the wall. It was just ridiculous. So I wonder, when they were kids, how many times they threw tantrums and the parent, frustrated, whatever the case may be, or just didn't stand up to the kid, or when it was 2 years old, 3 years old, thought it was cute and did not deal with it at the 2-year-old, 3-year-old, now they're 13 years old. Parents, you got to understand what these teachers are saying. You have to deal with these behaviors, whatever the reason why they're expressing their behavior. I want to go back to what Raquel was talking about, those 4 different types of reasons why somebody may act out. They're trying to get something, trying to get some attention, all the different types of things. The reason why they're acting out may not necessarily be wrong, but how they're expressing it is the issue. Mm-hmm. And parent, train up a child in the way he or she should go. So when they get older, they don't depart from that training. You've got to train your child how to express and deal with it. Now, I would say this, ladies. I would say this, and I want you to touch on this. I would say that there's some parents that don't know how to express themselves correctly. There's some parents that don't know how to behave. So what about the parents that come and really seem to be more of an enemy, more against you? They're contrary. You're trying to train their child, and it seems like the parent is kind of giving the kids advice that's contrary to what you're trying to say, or the parent is reinforcing and backing up that negative behavior, and maybe sometimes even blaming you for why they are and acting how they're acting. Tell me about that. How detrimental is that? How do we deal with that?
Well, I would say that's setting your child up for failure, just in life, because everywhere they go, there are going to be rules and expectations that are different from maybe what they were brought up on or what their parents taught them. And part of school readiness that I do with my children is getting them to learn to follow instructions. So having that conversation with parents, I have not yet, thankfully, had a parent who was against me to the point where they're like, you're the problem. Like I said, thankfully, but I have had parents where kind of they're not really seeing it. It's like, well, I don't really see the issues, or this is just at school. I don't understand.
You're lying. Parent, you're lying. Parent,
yes. But really explaining to, because I have them so young, and this is optional. Preschool is optional, but so beneficial for children because they're getting the social emotional development, which is the biggest thing that kindergarten teachers are looking for. They're looking for you to be able to come and sit in your seat and listen.
Yes.
So explaining that to the parent, like I said, for my age group, is that, well, I'm trying to get them ready for kindergarten. And I can't obviously try to scare them into believing, but I'm just you know what, with them going to kindergarten with this type of behavior, I don't know how it's going to be handled in the classroom. They don't have the breathing strategies that we do with our kids. They don't have a calm down corner. They don't have 2 other instructional assistants to help with the challenging behaviors. So I don't know what they're going to do if your child is in the class doing this type of disruptive behavior. Kind of just being, real and honest with them, and letting them know how down the line that's going to affect them in school, how their child can be labeled, which we don't want. And usually when I use this kind of like stronger language, the parents kind of really get it. Even if I've had a conversation before this, once I start using words like that, like, what's going to happen when they go there, it's disruptive. There's only one teacher, and they start thinking about things like that. It does kind of open their eyes a little bit more, and they're more willing to get the child maybe some outside help. But I love for Elder Selena to share, because she already has the older one, so it's much different.
Let me, before you share, Elder Selena, let me fill a time slot, because you got them at 3rd grade, right? That's what you're teaching right now, Elder Selena. You're teaching 3rd grade, 2nd grade. Okay, so let me deal with the kindergarten part, okay? Because so for those of you that don't know, I used to be a school administrator, and the roles that I played was like a dean of discipline. So the kid that did not behave eventually ended up in my office. And if this behavior was severe enough, they ended up getting suspended. And after so many times, they may even be expelled, kicked out of the school, kicked out of the district. So let me share with something that Raquel just said. She's dealing with early childhood development. So that's what, 2, 3, 4 years old, maybe, right? By the time you get something like that, right? So 5 years old is around kindergarten time. Parent, I need you to hear, if you have a child that's that young, or a grandchild that's young, you need to hear what I'm saying. So you need to hear this, because I dealt with them in kindergarten. Okay. When we had a conversation before we were, when we were planning this out, I dealt with a kindergarten child, 2 of them, male and female, 2 different classes. And the one little girl, I had a little girl, a little boy. Okay. Kindergarten. When they started the whole tantrum, this, that, we literally had to go to the classroom and clear the classroom out. That means every child with the teacher, we need you to leave the classroom, because these little ones would throw stuff, all that kind of stuff, and they became dangerous to everybody. So the little girl would she would eventually go under the table. The little boy would stand on top of the table. But this is after they thrown stuff, tore stuff up, and it was acting out, tantrum, all that kind of stuff. So that's why the thing is this: when they don't have any rules at home, when there are no consequences, when there are no parameters, when they're doing stuff like hitting a parent at home. See, I've seen it before. A kid is 8 months old, a year old, they hit the parent, and then the kid, everybody laughs. Okay, mama. I've seen them when they're in kindergarten, and they're throwing these tantrums, they're acting out the behavior. And it's because they did not have any kind of rules. That's what Ms. Raquel was just talking about. She's trying to prepare them for kindergarten, because trying to teach them how to follow class rules and class behavior. And when they get in elementary school, and when they're in junior high school, we're trying to prepare them for adulthood. We're trying to prepare them and help them become members of society. So it starts 6 months old, 8 months old, a year old, 2 years old. Let me tell you, ladies, can I be honest with you? I can see a 6-month-old. I can see a 7-month-old, 8-month-old, because I've been doing it so long. And I can tell you if an 8-month-old is going to be a problem. I can tell you, I can say it in a few years. You're going to be at that school every day, right, mama? Because you think it's cute right now, because you're not dealing with it right now. You understand that in a few years, what's going to happen? That kid is going to be acting like that in the classroom. I told these ladies, the youngest kid that I've ever been part of an expulsion, was a 2nd grader. That little girl who was in kindergarten, tearing stuff up, getting under the table, we had to expel her by the time she was in 2nd grade, because kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, throwing tantrums, and they got worse and worse and worse and worse and more dangerous. So no, it's not cute. Don't come to school talking about, I don't see that behavior at home. I don't say people, I don't use that word lie often, but I've seen it too many times. You telling me your child's behavior is excellent at home, and then all of a sudden when they walk through the school doors, they become this entirely different person. Now listen, I've seen that kind of stuff. Maybe when they get older, they know how to turn it off and on. That kind of, I used to do that kind of stuff, right? One way at home, because I used to fear John Woods. John Woods. Listen, there were no timeouts in John Woods' home. He got the belt, and your behind got whooped. You needed a timeout to recover. That's what the timeout was. But he wasn't 10, 9, and he wasn't counting down. He took that belt off. He took the belt off, man, and he was going to work. You know what I'm saying? And so because I feared John Woods, I acted a different way. I was older. I knew how to flip it. Right? I knew how to flip it. But when you are 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, so I know what it looks like kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Okay, so Elder Selena, hand the baton to you. A parent that has no parameters, doesn't say no, all that kind of stuff. Now they're second grade, third grade. What's the deal?
Yes, I've seen it time and time, but with second graders, not so much. I did work with older kids, upper elementary at some point in my career. It was sixth grade. So I had a 12-year-old. His mom wanted to send him to after school tutoring, which I've done plenty of times. I had one designated day, and she didn't tell him. So mom didn't come. So I'm explaining to him, oh, mom said you're going to tutoring today. Meltdown. 12-year-old, sixth grade, meltdown. Bubble snot tantrum. Ridiculous. So I told mom when she came, it took him 20 minutes to calm down. I told mom when she came, like, okay, this is what happened. This is what I observed, thinking that she'd be like, oh my goodness. No. Clutch the pearls. She did not clutch the pearls. She said, oh, I was hoping he wouldn't do that.
So she knew who her kid was.
What? So she knew. She knew. Some parents are like, oh, really? I can't even imagine. But she knew.
Said, and you said, I hope he wasn't do that. Now, you one of the leaders at New Life. I'm talking about the word hope, right? I said, hope is a bad strategy. Hope is a bad strategy. And that's the thing. These kids, if a parent is not training the child at home, they just hope they go to school and it works out.
Hope it.
That is there has to be some rules at home. Let me ask y'all this. So because this is the thing, if a parent is where they are right now, and they're identifying this and they're saying, ladies, I hear you, Pastor D, I hear you. This is where I'm at right now. What can they begin to do to turn this thing around? Because we can't just say, hey, your kid acting up this, there's no hope. There is hope. What can they do to begin to turn this thing around? What kind of rules can they set at home? What kind of parameters? What do they need? Should there be a bedtime? Should there be, screen time? And we'll talk about screen time in a second. Should there be, what kind of consequences? What, their nutrition? Should they always be able to get the soda and all that kind of stuff? That type of thing. Should they always be able to play the video games? If they had a not so good day at school, what? So let me ask that. And that's one of the questions. Perfect. What can parents begin to do to turn things around? Okay, that's what I just asked. So what can they do?
I'll go. I would say boundaries are good. Let them know that boundaries are not harmful. They're not detrimental. They might not feel comfortable, with their child acting up and having tantrums, but boundaries are good because kids need them, whether they know it or not. They love it for you later. I've had many a child that acted up at the beginning of the year. They love me, send me flowers, candy. They come back the next year and they thrive with boundaries. Just mainly, that's the main thing, to let the parents know that the kids do thrive with boundaries. At first, it might be uncomfortable if you're not used to giving them boundaries, but over time, when you stand firm, it will work out.
So you're saying, in other words, you're saying you have to say no? You actually had to say no?
Yes, no is a lovely word, and they should practice daily. No.
Yeah.
I did it for GP with my kids. I might be able to do something, but just for no.
Can I know? But what about no? You think maybe no? Oh my goodness. What are your thoughts, Raquel? How does that, especially the little ones, right?
Mhm.
How can we change? How can we turn this thing around? Because we may be kind of joking and all this and that, and it's easy for me to talk about it right now, but you all literally have to deal with it every single day, and what goes on at home. That is the training and it is, and we're talking about mental and emotional health and behaviors and all that kind of stuff. I There's no way these kids are sound mentally and emotionally with all this behavior and chaos and how they're operating. So what kind of rules, boundaries can somebody start with their child?
I agree with what Elder Selena said as far as like boundaries. Those are so important. And especially like younger children, um, it's almost like you need to have even more because they're so young and they're, the cortex in their brain is not fully developed or as developed as like even an older child, so they need a lot more guidance. And your question, Pastor D, connects with one I saw Ronnie ask about how can parents discipline their child. It's like, they're like related, but with the boundaries, giving clear expectations. So this is what I expect you to do. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And following through, you have to always follow through. You have to
Mm,
reinforce what you say. So if you say, if you don't clean up right now, then you won't get to watch TV before you go to bed. I know maybe that's for some kid, they get to have their time to relax and they don't clean up. Oh, come on, clean up. Didn't you hear me? Oh, and then
say it,
there's
Raquel,
nothing,
please.
there's no follow through. So
Wow.
even something that I do with my kids at work, for example, just really quick, I had this child. I have him still this year. I have him this year again, but last year he was bell ringer. That was his job for the week. They get to ring the bell at cleanup time. He was acting up when it was, free play time. I'm watching him. I'm looking at my eyes. She's like very soft spoken, bless her heart. But she's very soft spoken when she's trying to like be firm with the kids. I'm watching the interaction. He's literally like making circles on the carpet, like just going around like a dog. And I'm just watching like this. And I said, okay. And I get down. I said, you need to stop this right now and clean up like Miss So and so is telling you, or you're not going to be able to do your job as a bell ringer. Like being silly. That was all I said. I said, okay, you're going to lose your job one more time. He's still doing it. 1 minute later, I'm walking towards the bell. No, please, no, please. And then he starts crying, which is, that's some people, again, give it one, oh, okay, just make sure tomorrow. I'm so sorry this is making you that upset. I already told you you're going to lose your job.
You rang the bell.
You're right.
That probably broke his heart.
I was looking at it. It did, but this is the same kid I told you in Elder Selena have conflict with his mom this year. Same kid. Mom says, "I'm going to tell Miss Raquel." You said, "No, please don't tell her. Don't tell her." I said, "No, I'm sorry. I won't." Same kid has great respect for me, and now when I say things, he responds. So you have to follow through every time, even for the little stuff. So you want to pick and choose your battles. If it's not that big of a deal, maybe
Mm,
don't say something, especially if you're starting this new process with your child. Pick and choose your battles because once you say it, you got to follow through, no matter
man,
how hard it is.
that is so good. That is so good because see now let me fast forward to the the leader me in different roles that I've played. You see grown folks that don't heed warnings, right? Hey, if you're late again, you're going to get written up. Next day, come in late 10 minutes. Oh, this and that happened. I understand, but I told you yesterday you're gonna get written up. And so see this, I don't think people realize how parents realize how detrimental they're being when they're not dealing with the child, with the teenager, creating some boundaries, setting some standards, having some rules, how important that absolutely is. And see, the Bible says this. It says God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. If you look at that sound mind, it talks about like this well-disciplined mind. So when we are not setting boundaries, having standards, reinforcing, we don't realize that we are allowing our children's mind to just go all over the place. And then we wonder why when they get in high school, they can't sit still, they can't stay off their phone. Our mind is all over the place. They can't focus. And next thing you know, as an adult, they're paying for it. I've seen kids over the years grow up. Like I think about certain situations where I see kids and grown and adults that are just struggling right now. But to be honest with you, ladies, I remember when they were little kids and their mom and their daddy let them do whatever they want to do. And then now they just all over the place, and life is miserable because when they were a kid, no boundaries. Let me ask these two questions real fast. And I know we could probably spend a lot of time talking about it. And I want everybody watching to know that we've had some discussions. One of the things Lady Jen and I have talked about before is doing some sort of parenting classes. Talked about that. And so after this discussion with these ladies, let's see where this goes. Because I believe that not just the members we have now, but the members that we have coming that are going to be joining in the future are going to need some help with their children, with their teens. It's chaos and toxic and all kinds of stuff in their home, and the kids are having these issues at school. The kids are acting out, and kids are fighting, all that kind of stuff. Parents need some answers, some solutions, some help. So we're not going to be able to solve everything. But let me address these two issues right here, these two questions right here. Number one, 2020, pandemic hits, COVID hits the entire world. Kids literally going to school 1 week and the next week stay at home. I remember when that happened in the spring of 2020. And the thought was, we're just going to keep the kids home for a week or two. That's what the public schools say. A week or two, we should be cool. We'll bring them back. That pandemic, man, that COVID went wild. And all of a sudden now, I'm taking my kids to school to check out computers and laptops because they're going to do this distance learning. My boys were in 9th grade at the time, right? There were seniors that when that pandemic hit, they didn't get a chance to do the graduation, right? All that kind of stuff. There were kids. I remember the fall of that 2020 is when we started school with people staying at home and the distance learning. My daughter, Janiyah, 5 years old, about to be 5, whatever the case may be, she started kindergarten on a laptop. I was working remotely myself. I have my laptop in front of me. She had her laptop sitting right next to me. I'm working, she going to school on a laptop. How did that impact? How has that impact? What does quarantine have done? They didn't have the social interaction. They didn't have some of the disciplines that they would have at school. So for the parent that just lets their kid do whatever, that was happening for like a whole year and some change. And then they come back to school. How did that impact?
Yes. I saw it when we came back. I had 3rd grade at the time, and you could see the lack of impulse control. Kids just feeling like they could do whatever they wanted to, because when they were online, it was a case where some parents did not discipline their kids to sit there and, get dressed and sit in front of the computer and have a designated spot. And I would tell them etiquette, like how to act online, and give the parents all the necessary things that they needed to have their kids be successful. And you get on the screen and the screen would be black. One of the requirements was like have the screen on, or they'd be laying down, they'd be in their pajamas, cuddle up in their blanket, just getting up and getting snacks. And like we're learning right now, it's not that long. The day was actually shorter when we were online. Right. So can we focus for just a little bit longer? So that was an issue, impulse control. When we came back into the classroom, our school was a little different. I'm in private school. We had a waiver and we came back that fall. We were online initially, like maybe the first 2 or 3 weeks, then we came back, but then we have like the social distancing and the screens and all that type stuff in the classroom. But anyway, we could see it in the classroom where kids would just act out, lack of social skills. It was an issue for sure when we came back to the physical classroom.
How was their mental and emotional health? How was that when they came back?
Yes, some of them they did not know how to control their big emotions. They lacked apathy and empathy for others, and just kind of mean-spirited and just say whatever came to their mind. I would tell them, you need a checkpoint. Let's work on our checkpoint. Everything that you think doesn't have to come out your mouth.
How do you think it was? Because even so 3 years, right? Because you've been teaching your own class 3 years. Mm-hmm. So kids wearing masks at that.
Yes.
Right. So how? I mean,
distancing in the classroom.
Social distancing. So little ones that are used to.
Yes.
They don't have boundaries, right? They're close. They're this, that. How did these 2 and 3 year olds deal with social distancing, wearing a mask, all that stuff?
It was really tough for them, and then for us in the classroom too, because they're drilling into us that they have to wear these masks. So of course, they're 3, they're like pulling it down, they have it down here. So half the time, pull your mask up over your nose, pull your mask up. And then of course they're crying. Natural tendency, they want, us to comfort, and we can't even do that. Wow. So just missing, like you said, that like physical connection. And then some of the children, I would say like my second year, saw a lot of last year when I was teaching, you saw a lot of the effects, even more so because these were like 3-year-olds coming in. So all of their like memories that they can really think of, it was them at home. And so now they're for the first time coming out, and they're discovering that the rules at home don't apply. Like that was just at home that this was supposed to happen, but they're still they're acting out these behaviors in the classroom. So just like really tough. And then like Elder Selena said, the impulse control, like the attention, of course they're young, so we don't expect their attention span to be long, but just like some of them, you can tell it's like screen time mixed with the effects of the pandemic, and maybe even like some kind of developmental disorder, something, because literally, it's like every 2 seconds, looking back and forth, can't focus, no impulse control, just randomly hitting when you walk past them, and just stuff like that, where it's like, what are we doing? He's not doing anything to you. Like just certain children, I should say, like that, or some children coming out and it wasn't diagnosed, but like selective mutism. Like this one little boy I had did not talk in the class until like February. We start school in September.
Wow.
Mom recorded him at home. I'm like, wow, he speaks very clearly. At school, nothing.
I tell you, I don't think we still have really felt the full effects of the pandemic. You think about that. I mean, we already were at a place where we call it social media, but we are the least social we've ever been. Back in the day, you played in the neighborhood. Now everybody is isolated. Like that was intentional. Now the pandemic hits, right? And who knows what all is going on with watching what's going on in the home. I mean, I remember that. I mean, I'm working from home. My kids are having school at home. So we're having church at home. So everything is in this place, in this house. They don't have the same face-to-face conversations with their friends like they had before. I don't know what they're thinking, what their thoughts are, all that kind of stuff. And so I could imagine what these kids are trying, for them to try to function in now a classroom. And even grown folks, there was a big issue when grown folks started going back to work. There was a lot of traumatic issues because people were, first of all, still paranoid about COVID because we still didn't know everything about COVID, right? We had the debate about vaccine, not vaccine. I mean, it was just a nasty time in the nation, right? It became a political issue. People didn't want to be at work. I mean, and then we had that. Then remember, we had the social pandemic. We had the George Floyd situation. A lot of mental health issues going on all at that time. I don't think we've completely uncovered it. I just saw the first. I can't say the first graduating class. The first high school graduating class that started their high school years social learning from home. They just graduated from high school. You know what I'm saying? They just graduated from high school. I'm curious about the graduation rates. I'm very curious about that. I'm curious about where they, because, you know, we also know that sometimes we're pushing kids through and we're allowing them. I'm just curious about these kids right now. The thing that I said when the pandemic hit, I said that we were going to see the effects of the pandemic in society when that group of folks were working. And so we're going to see in the next few years what that looks like. Let me ask one last question. This is a big one. Screen time. Time on the phone, time on television, time on computers, all that kind of stuff, laptops. How does that impact the kids when they come to school?
Oh my goodness. Lack of focus. Some of them have the attention span of a gnat. Everything is like squirrel. They can't focus. They're so used to go screen time and whatever games they're playing, and they kind of act out those videos that they see, or the games that they're allowed to play in the classroom or on the playground, especially, because I wouldn't really have a whole bunch of issues in the classroom, but constantly getting reports back from the people on yard duty. So-and-so was doing this or acting out or hit so-and-so. You see a lot of that when they're playing. They're really rough with each other. And screen time, I would say to limit screen time for parents. Don't let them have just free access, free reign as a babysitter. Is not there to babysit them. Like with my biological kids, our 3 kids, screen time, we cut that out on, I believe it was Mondays and Wednesdays. They weren't allowed to watch any television or play any video games on Mondays and Wednesdays. They had to read. They had to do something educational. And they were allowed to do YouTube if it was educational. So that's where you see Jamar. He learned how to juggle. He learned how to draw. He can do the Rubik's Cube up to 10s right now. I think he might be on the 11s, 10s or 11s. He just does a lot of things because he did not have that screen time. So now he is more well-rounded. All of them are more well-rounded because of the fact that they weren't constantly watching the television, constantly on YouTube, constantly, doing whatever as far as video games are concerned.
Wow. What about those little ones, Raquel? I know that they grow up. I see. And listen, I always say, use myself as an example. You can't get offended, right? I know that we have allowed our youngest more screen time than she absolutely should have. And that's why sometimes she acts so grown now. She's able to have these conversations and reason like an adult. I mean, yes, she has older brothers and all that kind of stuff. But, I see a 1-year-old that can maneuver around the phone better than I can, right? How is that impacting them? Even their mental, their emotional health, their social. How is that even? Can you see that? Can you see it when they come to your class?
I can. All like what Elder Selena said, I absolutely agree with. I would say again, like she said, to limit, and also have like a schedule, especially for younger kids, a schedule. That's like they thrive on that. They have a routine. So a lot of my students will like after school is screen time for them, like immediately after school. Like parents could be walking out handing the phone or your tablet's in the car. Like it's immediately after school. Some of the kids say, when I get home, I'm going to play this game on my tablet. And it's like, that's like something they do every single day. I had one of my students recently, like a few weeks ago, she came to school late. She was frustrated. Mom was frustrated. And at first I was like, when she comes in, I'm going to talk to her because she's been coming late. That's what I'm thinking in my head. But then she had called the office to explain what happened. The little girl didn't want to come to school because she was watching something on her mom's phone. She didn't want to stop watching it. So 100% not before school, if like at all possible. I'm like, I was a kid. We used to watch like Franklin and like Little Bear before school. That stuff that's on the TV. You can't like, that's just it. But like, as far as that, that's like Elder said, it's like constantness. You can get whatever you want as fast as you want. Not before school. Like, let that be a time where they're waking up, they're having breakfast, they're getting ready to focus for school, because it shouldn't be a competition. I want that more than school, more than what I'm learning.
Wow.
And then, like she said, like monitor, like you said, monitoring. So if they are watching, you should know what they're watching. A lot of my students, a lot. I wouldn't say like half, but a lot of them, some of the stuff they say, oh, that's not, you shouldn't be watching stuff like that. That's not for children. That's not for little kids to watch. Do you watch it? I don't watch it. I'm an adult and I don't watch that kind of stuff. And then having a conversation with the parents. Oh yeah, I know he's not on YouTube. I don't even know how he found that. Do you know that there are blocks?
Parental controls.
You know that parental control. Do you know that there is YouTube for kids, and you can put in your child's age? Like, there's all these things if you want to leave your child to just look at it. But you should be monitoring it, and you should know what they're watching so that you can have a conversation. So if you do happen to go to a movie with a child, or they see something that's like extremely violent, you're right there to be like, that's not real. That's just for the movie. Yeah. That's not how we act. We don't hit people we don't hurt people like that. So you can have that dialogue with them.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, because we need to wrap it up, come to a close. We may need to really discuss that particular topic on a separate time. This whole screen time, again, let me use myself as an example. Our kids, our youngest for sure, has definitely had more access than older ones did. Our youngest has watched stuff that we didn't let the older ones watch because she's sitting there with the older ones, all that kind of stuff. And I can see the difference. Yeah, there's some good development, all this and that. But at the same time, sometimes I tell her, hey, you just need to be a little baby. You know, I need you to be my little baby. I need, because what this is also doing is causing these kids to grow up quicker. And then now, everything is so, listen, when it comes to television, social media, movies, commercials, so suggestive. Everything right now is trying to get our kids to do the wrong thing. Listen, according to the scriptures. They're trying to make everything in society normal. And just because it's on the TV, just because it's voted a certain way, just because we see it, just because there's this, that, and they allow it and accept it in the school and accept it in the workplace, does not mean it is good and it's right. And so I go back to train up a child in the way they should go. What we say, what we do, what we allow our kids to access, how we treat them, it is all impacting their development, impacting them socially, is impacting the emotional, the mental health. And understand this, parents, let me say this for us parents, if we don't start guiding our children, then we send them to school. And it is not fair for now these individuals, these teachers that have to be mom and dad and clinical therapist and family counselor and pastor and nutritionist, because we're not doing the right things at home. It's not fair, not right. And I can't control the world, and I can't even necessarily control whatever, but I'm asking you as your parents, I want to influence your decisions. I want to influence. We had this specifically tonight, this couch time tonight was for us as parents to begin to look and see what we're doing and begin to make better decisions. We owe it to our kids. If the Bible says train up a child in the way he should go, that means that God has given us the responsibility and the obligation to train up our children, period. It's not the school's job. It's not social media's job. It is our job to influence our kids, train our kids, make sure that our kids, we didn't even really get into making sure our kids have that they're healthy mentally and healthy emotionally. We didn't even talk about that necessarily. It's our responsibility. Their encouragement, their self-esteem, all of that kind of stuff needs to be built at home. So parent, if all you do is dog your daughter out, dog your son out, badmouth your kid, of course, when they go to school, listen, now they're going to act out. Now they're going to go to school and try to everything that they're not at home, they're going to try to go to school and be that thing. So you don't like your kid, you don't appreciate your kid. Of course, I love my kid. They can't feel it, they can't tell, they can't understand because the way that you're talking to them, cussing them, all that kind of stuff, treating them really bad. So then they go to school, and then now they got to get it from somewhere. They got to get some self-esteem. They got to get some, whatever the case may be. Parents, let's get this thing right. Let's train up our child in the way they should go. Not only when it comes to spiritually and understand the spirit, spirituality, that has to be number one, right? Righteous living, holy living. They need to know that they're born again, that they're saved, their name's written in the Lamb's Book of Life, that Jesus died for the sins. They need to understand that. They need to understand that sin is sin, and they need to understand that. They also need to know how to behave and conduct themselves. They need to know how to have some resiliency. They need to know how to, when they are frustrated, when they need to know how to deal with that. They need to understand how to deal with their emotions. And that's our job as parents. So ladies, I appreciate you. I'm so grateful. I'm looking forward to future conversations, looking forward to see what we're going to do when it comes to some sort of parenting classes, some sort of what the case can be, because there not only are people in our ministry, but there are friends and there are people in the community that need the help that can be provided from individuals like you, from the church. So I love you all. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much for joining in on the couch time. So thank you so much. You can go ahead and take them off the screen. See y'all, ladies. See y'all. Thank you so much. So listen, let me just share this as we wrap up. Let me share this as we wrap up. You can go ahead and take them off the screen. Let me just share this as we wrap up. I'm serious about the mental and emotional health. I can't, it breaks my heart to know that the second leading cause of death for 10 to 14-year-olds is suicide. That means that their mental and emotional health is sick, is dangerously sick. I don't want to hear about a child taking their lives. Just recently, I heard about a 12-year-old taking their lives. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see our young people go to school and need to have their self-esteem built up and making bad decisions and getting connected with the wrong crowd and dealing with drugs and alcohol because they're just trying to escape. They're trying to deal with their self-esteem. I don't want to see that, y'all. So let's begin to really, really focus and hone in on mental, emotional health. Let's begin to support one another, love one another, pray for each other, pray for these parents. They got quite a task. Pray for these parents. Pray for our kids. Watch over, shield, bless. Watch our kids. Let them know what's right and what's wrong. Let's begin to address this. Begin to create boundaries and parameters. Begin to have rules and regulations in our home. Because without restraints, the Bible says, it talks about that when the people don't have restraints, it's very dangerous. So I pray that you enjoyed this night. I know I did, man. I'm so grateful. Share this with somebody. Some parent needs to see this. Listen, if you have questions and things like that, understand that these ladies will be more than willing to have conversation with you. Myself, a former administrator, I'd be willing to have a conversation with you as well. We want to see your children, your grandchildren, want to see them successful, want to do everything that we can to be a part of that. So we will partner with you to help your children. All right. Love y'all. Thank you so much. Friday is our last Friday Fire. You got to be on 6 a.m. Don't miss it. I'm going to be teaching a message called Caught Off Guard. I'm telling you, better be on Friday morning, 6 a.m. is Friday Fire, Caught Off Guard. And then Sunday is Mother's Day. And we're going to have a Mother's Day tea. Ladies, wear your hats, your gloves. Come prepared to be pampered. We're going to have an incredible time. It's part of our service. We'll have an actual Mother's Day tea. I'm excited about it. I love you all, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.